If you didn't know, budgeting keeps you broke. This is a video about breaking physics, not financial physics, human physics, the kind that keeps low-income earners stuck in the same orbit no matter how hard they push. And the man who cracked this code, Warren Buffett, never made a single TikTok about it. He buried it inside 50 years of shareholder letters that 99% of the world never read. Most people think escaping low income means earning more money. Entirely wrong. You can earn more and still get poorer. Millions of people do it every single year. This video is not about income. It is about an invisible architecture, the structural forces that make sure no matter how much you earn, the system collects it back before you ever build anything with it. Stay with this, because what comes next is going to reframe the last 10 years of your financial life and give you a framework that actually works. Most people believe poverty is a shortage of money, opportunity, and luck. They are wrong. Not completely wrong, but not correct either. Poverty is not a shortage. Poverty is a thermodynamic trap. In physics, there is a concept called a potential energy well. Imagine a ball sitting at the bottom of a curved valley. It has no kinetic energy. It cannot move on its own. You can push it up the slope with effort, with sacrifice, with sweat, but the moment you stop pushing, gravity pulls it right back to the bottom. The system does not care how hard you tried. The system just runs its equations. This is not a metaphor. This is the exact mathematical structure of low income in the modern economy. Now, research into the Berkshire Hathaway model reveals that the poverty loop is an environment of negative compounding, where every financial decision made under scarcity accelerates the descent back to zero. Research calls this the poverty loop. And unlike a budget, the poverty loop has a specific, diagnosable, escapable architecture. Consider the humble steel bridge. A structural engineer designs a bridge with a load capacity of exactly 100,000 pounds. Now, imagine a contractor who, trying to save money, substitutes cheaper steel for 3 of the internal beams. The bridge looks identical. It functions for years. Then, on one Tuesday morning, a truck carrying 98,000 pounds crosses. The weakened structure handles it, barely. Then a second, smaller truck follows, 4,000 pounds. The combined load is still under the design limit, but the compromised beams have been microscopically deforming for years. That morning, they fail. The bridge does not crack, it collapses. Here is the critical engineering insight. The bridge did not fail because of the last truck. It failed because of every prior decision that reduced its structural margin. The bridge was already mathematically doomed. The last truck was just the audit. This is exactly what happens to low-income earners in the modern financial system. The consumer debt is the compromised beam. The absence of savings is the missing structural redundancy. The paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle is the bridge with no margin. And the emergency, the medical bill, the car repair, the layoff, is not the cause of the collapse. It is merely the audit of a structure that was already failing. The harder you work to keep the bridge standing, the more loads you take on. The more loads you take on, the faster the beams deform. This is the cruel mathematics of the poverty loop. The harder you try inside the broken system, the faster the system consumes you. Let's talk about what this actually costs you. Not in abstract terms, in dollars. In years, in the thing no financial influencer ever talks about. The average American carries $6,500 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of 20.68%. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent data. That is $1,344 per year in interest paid to a financial institution for the privilege of being broke. That's not a fee, that is a penalty. A penalty for not having enough money to not need the card in the first place. You are being charged for poverty. But the hidden cost goes deeper. That $1,344 per year invested instead into a broad market index fund at an average 8% annual return. The historical average of the S&P 500 would become $79,000 over 20 years, not because of magic, because of compounding. The same compounding that Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has used to grow from a failing textile mill in 1965 to a $900 billion enterprise today. But here is the hidden cost of that hidden cost. This is where most analysis stops and where the real trap lives. The interest payment is financial. The psychological damage is structural. Research in behavioral economics, specifically the work of Nobel laureate Sendil Mullainathan, shows that financial scarcity literally reduces cognitive bandwidth. The mental load of managing shortage, of juggling what gets paid this week versus next, consumes the same cognitive resources needed for long-term planning. The trap is not just that you cannot save. The trap is that the stress of not saving makes it harder to think your way out. You are not lazy. You are cognitively taxed by a rigged system. And the cycle, earn, owe, pay, stress, repeat, is self-reinforcing. This is the loop. This is why escaping it requires dismantling the architecture, not working harder inside it. Here is exactly what we are about to break down. We are going to expose the negative compounding engine, the invisible mechanism draining your net worth right now, and precisely how much it is costing you in decade-scale numbers. Now, we are going to decode the human capital allocation, the one investment strategy Buffett said beats every stock pick, and how to execute it with zero starting capital. We are going to architect the defensive moat, the structural buffer that separates people who survive emergencies from people who get destroyed by them. We are going to activate the snowball protocol, the compounding framework that turns even the smallest surplus into a self-sustaining wealth engine over time. Let's go. Most people think debt is just a temporary inconvenience. Borrow now, pay later, move on. They think of it as a bridge, something that helps them cross from where they are to where they want to be. This belief is reasonable. Banks spend billions of dollars per year making it sound reasonable. The Buffett principle on this point is unambiguous. Analyzing Buffett's letters to Berkshire shareholders across the last 5 decades reveals a consistent, almost obsessive warning. Consumer debt at high interest rates does not function as a bridge. It functions as a reverse compounding machine, a mathematical engine that converts your future wealth into someone else's present profit. Here is the mechanism. The stock market, measured by the S&P 500, has returned an average of 7% to 10% annually over the last century. A credit card at 20% interest does not care about your income, your intentions, or your effort. It applies its rate daily. Every day, you carry a balance. You are losing ground at a rate that even Berkshire Hathaway, with its team of analysts, its billions in capital, its 60-year track record, cannot consistently overcome. As Buffett himself noted, you can't borrow money at 18 or 20% and come out ahead. That is not opinion, that is arithmetic. Consider 2 people, Sarah and James. Both earn $45,000 per year. Both have $10,000 in credit card debt at 20% APR. Sarah makes minimum payments, roughly $200 per month. James attacks the debt aggressively, paying $600 per month. Sarah's debt takes 94 months to eliminate. She pays $8,800 in interest alone. James eliminates his debt in 20 months, paying only $1,900 in interest. The difference? $6,900. That is not a rounding error. That is 6 months of rent in many cities. That is the delta between 2 people with identical incomes whose financial trajectories diverge permanently, not because of discipline, but because of architecture. Economists call this the debt spiral effect. The Buffett doctrine calls it negative compounding. The result either way, the person with less ends up paying more. So, how do we break this loop? The Berkshire methodology is surgical here. Step 1. List every debt by interest rate, highest to lowest. This is not the Dave Ramsey snowball method. That is a psychological strategy. This is the mathematical optimum, what analysts call the avalanche method. Step 2. Redirect every non-essential dollar to the highest rate debt first. Not to investing, not to savings beyond a small emergency buffer, to debt elimination. Because paying off 20% debt is a guaranteed, risk-free 20% return. And no investment on earth offers you that without substantial risk. This is not sacrifice. This is the single best capital allocation decision available to a low-income earner. You are not cutting spending. You are buying back your own compounding power. Restore the structure before loading the bridge. Now we enter the second loop. This is the one most people overlook entirely because they think it requires money to start. It does not. I call this the human capital allocation. Most people think the path out of low income is a better job, more hours, a promotion, a side hustle on top of an already exhausting schedule. They think income is the problem, so more effort toward income is the solution. This belief is exhausting, and it is incomplete. Research into the Berkshire Hathaway model reveals a foundational operating principle. Berkshire only acquires businesses it deeply understands. They call this operating within this circle of competence. The principle is simple. When you operate within your area of genuine understanding, you make better decisions, avoid costly mistakes, and compound knowledge over time, just as capital compounds over time. Applied to an individual, this principle generates a counterintuitive but statistically verifiable insight. The highest ROI investment available to a low-income earner is not a stock, it is a skill. Buffett stated in a 2009 interview that the best investment you can make is in yourself. That mastery in a high-demand field insulates your earning power against inflation, economic downturns, and technological disruption. A 2023 Bureau of Labor Statistics report confirms this. Workers in the top quartile of skill-based occupations earned 3.4 times more than those in the bottom quartile, and their unemployment rate during recessions was 60% lower. Skill is not just an income multiplier, it is economic body armor. Here is the analogy. Imagine two farmers. They both have the same plot of land, 1 acre each. Farmer A plants corn, the cheapest, most common crop. He works hard. He harvests every year. His income is stable, low, and entirely dependent on commodity prices he cannot control. Farmer B spends the first season not planting. He studies soil chemistry, learns precision irrigation, and travels to learn vertical greenhouse techniques. The following season, he plants specialty herbs, the kind that sell for $40 per pound versus 4 cents per pound. For corn, same land, radically different yield. The Buffett principle on human capital says, the soil is your time. Most low-income earners plant the cheapest crop because they feel they cannot afford to wait. The mathematics say the opposite. The one season of investment produces a decade of asymmetric return. So, how do we execute this? Identify one high-leverage, scalable skill within your existing circle of competence. Not something random from a YouTube ad, but something adjacent to what you already know, already have access to, already have credibility in. High leverage means it commands premium pricing. Scalable means it does not require proportional increases in your physical time to generate more income. Think digital services, consulting, specialized knowledge, then allocate a structured block of time, minimum 90 minutes per day, to intentional skill development, not passive consumption, active, deliberate practice with measurable output. Reclaim the compounding that debt stole from your capital and apply it now to your own expertise. This is not a side hustle. This is human capital investment, and it compounds exactly like money does, slowly at first, then suddenly. If you want a breakdown of the highest leverage skills by income bracket and time to ROI, drop skill in the comments right now. If this video hits 1,000 comments, I will make that video next week. Now, we move into the third loop. This one is the most emotionally misunderstood. People think it is about being cheap. It is not. This is called the defensive moat. Most people think an emergency fund is what financially responsible people have after they've gotten comfortable. A luxury of stability, something you build once you have a little breathing room. Most people are wrong. And this belief, this specific sequencing error, is one of the primary reasons the poverty loop is self-perpetuating. A core tenet of the Berkshire methodology is the margin of safety, a concept introduced by Benjamin Graham, the intellectual architect behind Buffett's entire investment philosophy. In corporate finance, margin of safety means buying an asset for significantly less than its intrinsic value, creating a buffer that protects against unforeseen downturns. At the individual level, the margin of safety has one direct translation. The gap between your income and your expenses is your structural survival buffer. And if that gap is zero, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, your financial structure has no margin of safety. You're operating at 100% load capacity, 100% of the time. one unexpected variable, and the bridge collapses. Here is the data that makes this concrete. According to a 2023 Federal Reserve survey, 37% of Americans could not cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. Not $4,000, not $40,000, $400. Meanwhile, the average American household experiences approximately one significant unexpected expense per year: medical, automotive, housing, with a median cost of $1,400. The mathematical outcome is predictable. Millions of people who are not in credit card debt go into credit card debt every year, not because of reckless spending, but because a single, unpredictable event found them with no structural buffer. The emergency did not cause the financial crisis. The absence of a defensive moat did. The analogy here comes from military strategy. A castle without a moat is a building. Any attacking force can walk directly up to the walls. The moat does not win battles. It buys time. It is time for the defenders to respond, adapt, and fight from a position of control rather than panic. Your emergency fund is not savings. It is a moat. Its purpose is not to generate return. Its purpose is to prevent you from being forced into toxic debt at the worst possible moment, when your options are fewest and the cost of borrowing is highest. How do we build this? The Buffett doctrine is clear. Cash is a terrible long-term investment due to inflation erosion, but it is a critical short-term survival instrument. The target is 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses, not total expenses, essential ones: housing, utilities, food, transportation to work. For someone earning $35,000 per year with $2,500 in monthly essential expenses, that is a $7,500 to $15,000 moat. Build it before you invest. Build it even before you aggressively pay down moderate debt. Why? Because without it, the next emergency sends you back to square one. You are not delaying your wealth building. You are buying the structural prerequisite for wealth building to actually stick. Open a separate high-yield savings account, currently paying 4.5% to 5% annually as of 2024. Name it the moat, and automate a transfer to it every payday. Make it invisible, make it boring, make it unbreakable. Rebuild the margin, reclaim the buffer. This is the infrastructure layer. Without it, nothing else compounds. Hit the like button right now if this reframe just shifted how you think about emergency savings. Now, we arrive at the fourth and final loop. This is the one people romanticize the most and understand the least. It is called the snowball protocol. Most people think investing is for people with money. They think they need thousands of dollars, a financial advisor, a Robinhood account loaded with stock picks, and some kind of secret knowledge about which company is going to explode next. Most people are wrong, and this belief is costing them decades. The Buffett principle at the center of Berkshire Hathaway's entire methodology is compounding, specifically asymmetric compounding over long-time horizons. The title of Buffett's biography is not called The Brilliant Stock Picker. It is called The Snowball, because the mechanism is not intelligence, it is physics. A small snowball, given a long enough hill and enough time, becomes massive. Not because it gets bigger faster, but because each revolution adds more surface area, which catches more snow, which adds more mass, which adds more surface area. The compounding is geometric, and the only ingredient that cannot be bought is time. Here is the data that should change your entire relationship with starting small. A 25-year-old who invests $200 per month into a broad market index fund, the kind Buffett has repeatedly recommended for retail investors, specifically the S&P 500, at an average 8% annual return, will have accumulated $702,000 by age 65. They will have contributed $96,000 of their own money. The remaining $606,000, 86% of the total, is compounding. Time doing arithmetic. Now, here is the number that makes this urgent. That same person who waits until age 35 to start just 10 years later ends up with $298,000 at 65. They invested for 30 years instead of 40. The extra decade cost them $404,000. Time is not just valuable in this equation. Time is the majority shareholder. Mathematically, yet the person in the poverty loop who starts investing $50 per month at 25 will dramatically outperform the person who starts investing $500 per month at 40. This is not motivation. This is the math of exponential functions. You cannot negotiate with it. You can only start or not start. The extended analogy is Buffett's own origin story. At age 11, he bought his first shares of stock, 3 shares of City's Service Preferred at $38 each, using money saved from delivering newspapers and selling chewing gum door to door. He did not have thousands. He had $114 and a concept. He started the snowball at the top of the longest possible hill. By his 30th birthday, he had accumulated $1 million in today's dollars, not from a single brilliant trade, but from relentlessly adding small amounts to the snowball over the longest possible runway. In research into Berkshire Hathaway's growth model shows that 99% of Buffett's wealth was accumulated after his 50th birthday, not because he suddenly got smarter, because the compounding had been running for 4 decades by then. So how do you execute the snowball protocol from a low-income starting point? Step 1. Once the defensive moat is funded and high-interest debt is eliminated, redirect every free dollar into a tax-advantaged vehicle first. In the US, that means a Roth IRA. Contributions grow tax-free, and you can contribute to up to $7,000 per year as of 2024. Inside the Roth, invest in a low-cost, broad-market index fund, Vanguard's VTSAX or Fidelity's FZROX, have expense ratios below 0.05%, meaning nearly every dollar of return stays with you, not the fund manager. Step 2. Automate the contribution. Remove the decision entirely. This is what Berkshire Hathaway does with capital allocation. Systematic, unemotional, consistent. Step 3. Do not touch it. Do not check it daily. Do not panic when markets drop. A 2019 Fidelity study found that their best-performing accounts were accounts belonging to customers who had forgotten they had them. The snowball does not need you to manage it. It needs you to not stop it. Start small. Start now. Add consistently. Let time do what no stock pick ever could. This is not a hustle. This is the buyback of your own future. Subscribe right now if you want the next video, where we go deeper into specific index funds, Roth IRA setup, step-by-step, and exactly how to structure your first $1,000 investment, even if you've never invested before. The subscribe button is right there. It is free. But hit it. These 4 systems are not 4 separate tips. They are one integrated architecture. They run in sequence. They depend on each other. Destroy debt first. Build the moat. Upgrade the human capital. Deploy the snowball. This is the invisible architecture of escape. This is the Berkshire methodology applied to the individual. Here is the final reframe. The poverty loop is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of your exposure. Exposure to a system architected to extract value from people operating without a structural buffer. The trap was not built for bad people. It was built for people who did not yet know the rules of the game they were already playing. You now know the rules. The architecture that felt invisible 5 minutes ago has a blueprint. And blueprints can be read. Blueprints can be followed. The hill is long. The snowball is small right now. But it has to start somewhere. And somewhere is always smaller than you expect and earlier than you feel ready. You're not trapped. You're just standing at the top of a very long hill.